Good morning, friends. I, Dr. Devis Bandil, Associate Professor, Suresh Gyarviar University, accredited by NAC, A grade. Dear, today I will discuss about database management system. Before discuss about database management system, student should know about DBMS objective and learning outcomes of DBMS. Okay, then I will discuss about database management system. I am sharing my PPT. I hope you can see my PPT. In this lecture, I will cover so many topics of DBMS, like DBMS objective and outcomes. What is DBMS? Why to learn DBMS? Application of DBMS, characteristics of your DBMS, users of your DBMS, and architecture of DBMS. I will explain all topics one by one. There are so many objective of your DBMS. First objective is that to explain basic database concept, application, data models, scheme, and instances, and demonstrate the use of constraints and relational algebra operations. You know, there are four types of relational algebra operations, and also another objective of your DBMS is that describe the basic of your SQL and construct a query using SQL. SQL using uh, SQL like a structured query language. Okay, and I will discuss about the SQL in my next lecture. Here only I am explaining the full form of your SQL, and also I am explaining the overview of your SQL. SQL is your structured query language in which you will write the query for create the table, for insert the data into table, for update the data into your table, for enter the data into your table, and how to write the program in your structured query language. And another objective is that emphasize the importance of your normalization in your database. You know, normalization is most important concept of your DBMS. I am giving here overview only normalization. Without the normalization, your database is nothing. If you are making any database of your enterprise, and if you are not using the normalization, so your database is nothing. Because if you are making a database, if you are using a database of any enterprise, maybe your one recorded is a insert in your database many times, and if your record are already existing in your database many times, and if you want to change the any columns of your table, and before the normalization, if you will do this thing, your data will update in many records. That's why you will use the normalization. If you will use the normalization, your duplicacy, your redundancy will reduce. And that is the main purpose of your normalization, is that reduce the redundancy, reduce the duplicacy. That's why we will use the normalization. Normalization having some forms like your first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, BCNF. BCNF, biocode normal form. And I will discuss all of forms in my next lecture. Here I am explaining, I am only giving the overview of your normalization. The normalization is the main concept of your DBMS. Without normalization, your database is nothing. Okay. And next objective is that to facilitate student to database design and to familiarize use issue of concurrency control and your transaction management. These are the so many objectives of your database management system. And if we will talk about the outcomes of your DBMS, after studying this subject, that is your DBMS, student will able to apply the basic concept of your database system and your application, use the basis of your SQL. Basis of SQL means how to write the query, how to create the table in your SQL, how to insert the data in your SQL, how to update the data, how to alter the data, and how to delete the table, how to create the database. And after this study the subject, design a commercial relation database system by writing SQL using the system, and analyze and select storage the recovery technique of your database system. So there are so many objectives and outcomes of this subject. And now I will discuss about the DBMS. What is DBMS? You know, DBMS DBMS is the collection of your records, and also you can say that DBMS is the collection of your data, where you will store the data. That is your database. Records, what is records, what is fields? Records means collection of your field. And also you can say that record is your tuple. Suppose you are having a table of a student, and table is the collection of your records. Table is collection of your records, and record is the collection of your fields. Like suppose I am making a database, and I am having many tables in your database, and one of the table is your student. And as per I had told, table is the collection of your records. Means you will insert the many records in your table, and the record is the collection of your field, right? Suppose my record means Devesh record. Suppose your student record. Suppose your student record means, and I had already told record is a collection of fields like your student name, student address, student father name, student mother name, student course, student address, student phone number. There are so many fields of a student record. Okay, so it means database is a collection of your data, and also you can say that database is the collection of your records. The main purpose of design the database management system to manage the database means database management system are designed to manage the database. And also you can say that database management system is your software that use the standard method to store and organize the data. Means database management system is your software, and that is use the standard method to use the store the data and organize the data. The data can be added, can be deleted, can be traversed using various standard algorithm and your queries. That's why I had told you can also say that DBMS is your tool to store the data, edit the data, organize the data in your database. And it provides the several key features like your store data in your one central location, allow data to be shared by many users, provide user interfaces to work with data. So the main key point about your DBMS database management system is your tool to store the data, to edit the data, organize the data in your database. And also you can say that database management system is software to design the store data, define the data, and manage the data in your database as per I had told. And now I am taking the concept of your types of database of your management system. If we will talk about the types of your database management system, like your hierarchical database, network database, relational database, object oriented database, graph database, ER model database, ER stand for entity relationship model, and document database. And I will discuss all types of database one by one. And first is your hierarchical database. You know, hierarchical database, in a hierarchical database system, data is stored in a parent-children relationship mode. Data will be stored in your hierarchical database management system in your parent-child relationship mode. In your hierarchical database, actual data records also contain information about their groups and groups of parent-child relationship. Main key concept in your hierarchical database. In this database, your data will stored in parent-child relationship form. In a hierarchical database model, you can also say that data is organized into tree-like structure. The data is to stored in the form of a collection of your fields, where each field contain only one value, and your all records are linked to each other via links uh, into a parent-child relationship. In a hierarchical database model, each child record has only one parent, and one parent can have the many children. To retrieve a field of data, we need to traverse through each tree until the record is found. Traverse, you know, called the visit. Okay. Your hierarchical database system structure was developed in by IBM in 1980, sorry, 1960. While the hierarchical structure is very simple, it is inflexible due to the parent-child one-to-many relationship. One-to-many, I had told, because your one parent can have more than one child. And hierarchical database are word used to build high performance and availability application, usually in the banking and telecommunication industry. And if we will talk about the advantage and disadvantage of your hierarchical database can be accessed and updated rapidly. It's in this model structure is like into a tree structure, and the relationship between the records are defined in advance. This feature is a double-edged sword. And if we will talk about the disadvantage of your hierarchical database, this type of database structure is that each child in the tree may have only one parent. Relationship or linkage between children are not permitted, even if they make sense from a logical standpoint. And second is your network database. Here I am giving only overview of your types of your database. Next is your network database. Network database management system use a network structure to create a relationship between entities. Means in this network database management system, we will use a network structure to create a relationship between the entities. Entities, entity, you can say that is a person and place who have some characteristics. That is your entity. Like your student. Student is your entity because student have so many features, student have so many characteristics, like your student name, student father name, student mobile number, etc., etc. And the all characteristics are the attributes of this particular entity. So in this network database, we will use a network structure to create a relationship between the entities. Network database are mainly used on large digital computers. In your network database, children are called the members and the parents are called the occupiers. And the difference between each child or member is that it can have more than one parent. In your network database, and the approval of your network data model is similar to hierarchical data model. Data in a network database is organized into many to many relationship, and where your data will organize into hierarchical database in your one to many relationship. And in your network database, your data will organized into many to many relationship. Okay, and your network database structure are invented by Charis Batchman, and next is your relational database. Your relational database management system, the relationship between data is relational and data is stored in your tabular format. Tabular format means in your table format, and table is the collection of your row and columns. Means your data will organize into table format, means into your row and column formats. And each column of a table represent an attribute, and each row in a table represent a record. As per I had told, your table is the collection of your records, and your record is the collection of your field. Record is the collection of your attributes. Like as per my given example, suppose your student record. So in this record, there are so many fields, maybe student name, student father name, student mother name, student address, student mobile number, student city, student pin code. There are so many attributes of student record. So your table is the collection of your records, and your record is the collection of your field. And in your relational database, your data will stored into tabular format. Tabular format means in your row and column formats. Okay, and SQL is the language used to query RDBMS, including inserting, updating, deleting, and searching the records. When I will discuss about the SQL in my next lecture, that time I will discuss about to how to write the query in your SQL, how to insert the data into your table, how to update the data, how to delete the data from your table. Relational database work on each table that has a key field that uniquely indicate each row. Each row means your each record, your each tuple. These key field can be used to connect one table of data to another, and relational database are the most popular and widely used database. Some of the popular RDBMS are your Oracle SQL Server, MySQL, SQLite, and your IBM DB2. You know, your relational database has two major advantage. First is that relational database can be used with little or no training. Means when if you are using the relational database, so there is no required the training, and if you are using the relational database with little, and the second main advantage is that database entities can be modified without specifying the entire body. And your properties of relational tables, like your values are atomic, each row is alone, column values are the same thing, columns are undistinguished, sequence of row is insignificant, and each column has a common name. Okay, so these are the properties of your relational tables. And now I am talking about the object oriented model. In your object oriented model, I will discuss the functionality of your object oriented programming. If you are doing the postgraduate, and if you are in the final year of your bachelor degree, so about, I think about the object oriented language. It take more than the storage of your programming language object, and object DBMS increase the semantics of your C++ and your Java. It provides the full feature database programming capabilities while containing native language compatibility. It adds the database functionality to object in your programming language. The object-oriented database derivation is the integrity of object-oriented programming language system and consistent system. And now I'm talking about the object. Your object in your object programming language contain the two elements. First is that piece of data, that is your sound, video, text, or graphics. And second is that instructions or software programs called the methods for what to do with the data. And the advantage of your object-oriented database are so expensive to develop. Means if you are develop the object-oriented database, your object-oriented database is too expensive when you are developing an object-oriented database. And most organizations are unwilling and convert from those database. And if we will talk about the disadvantage of your object-oriented database, sorry, benefit of the object-oriented database are compiling the ability to mix the reuse object to provide the incredible multimedia capability. And next is your graph database. Graph database are no SQL database that use a graph structure for semantic query. The data is stored in the form of your nodes, ages, and properties. In your graph database, your data will stored in the form of your nodes, age, and now I am taking the ER model database. ER model means entity relationship model. Entity, as per I had told, ent is a person, place, and a relationship means relationship will exist between the entity. So, and through the ER model, you can define your whole enterprise. That's why your ER model is a most important model. ER model is a most important database because through the ER model you can define the whole enterprise. ER model is implemented as a database. In a simple relational database implementation, each row of a table represents the one instance of your entity type, and each field in a table represents an attribute type. In a relational database, a relationship between the entities is implemented by the storing the primary key. And here is new word. I have to use a primary key. The primary key is the one of the key, and through this key you can identify the record. And next is your document database. Document database are also NoSQL database that store data in the form of your documents. Means in your document database, your data will store in your form of your documents, and your each document represent the data, its relationship between other data elements. And other NoSQL databases. NoSQL database are database that do not use the SQL as the primary data access language. Means your NoSQL database are database that do not use the SQL. SQL, as per I had told, structured query language. There are so many NoSQL database like your Cosmos DB, Arango DB, Cost DB, Amazon document DB, etc., etc. And after that, now I will And now I will discuss about why we are using the DBMS. If we will talk about the DBMS, the student should know why use the DBMS. Why to learn DBMS? You know, your DBMS has the following characteristics like your real world entity, relation based tables, isolation of data and application, less redundancy, consistency, query language. Okay, and now I will discuss about the why to learn DBMS. As per I had told, real world entity, modern DBMS is more realistic and use the real world entity to design its architecture. It use the behavior and attribute. For example, a school database may use students as an entity and there is an your attribute and relation based tables. Your DBMS allow entity and relationship among them to form a tables. You know, your relation is to define in your table format. Okay, in your row and column format. And isolation of data and application. A database system is entirely different than its data. A database is an active entity, whereas data is said to be passive, on which the database work and organized DBMS also store the metadata and less redundancy. As per I have told, your database is nothing without the normalization. That's why your normalization is the main important concept of your DBMS. You can't make the any database without your normalization because your normalization will reduce the redundancy, will reduce the duplicacy. Okay, and your now and your consistency is a state where every relation in a database remains consistent. And your query language, DBMS is equipped with a query language which makes it more efficient to retrieve and manipulate the data. In your query language, I will use the SQL structure query language, and through the SQL you can create the table. Through write the query you can insert the data into your table. You can delete the data from your table, and you can also update the data from your table. And now there are so many applications of your DBMS, like your ACID, okay, and your multi-user and concurrent access, and your multiple view, and your security. These are the all applications of your DBMS. ACID property. ACID means your DBMS follow the concept of your atomicity, consistency, isolation, and your durability. That's why I have told ACID properties. And your multi-user and concurrent access. DBMS support multi-user environment that allow them to access and manipulate data in your parallel and your multiple view. DBMS offer multiple view for different users, and your security features like multiple view offer security to some extent, whereas users are unable to access the data to of other users. So there are so many applications of your DBMS. And now I had already told about the all characteristics of your DBMS, like your real world entity, relation based tables, isolation of data and application, less redundancy, consistency, query language, and your ACID property. And your if we will talk about the users of your DBMS, your users of your DBMS are administrator, designers, and your end users. And if we will talk about the architecture of your DBMS, okay, architecture of your DBMS, first is your database tier. At this tier, the database reside along with its your query processing language, and also we have the relations that define the data and their constraints at this level. Means in your database tier, in your database tree, the data and their we also have the relation that define the data and their constraints at this level. And next is your application tier, and that is your middle tier of your of your database. At this tier reside the application server and the program that access the database. For a user, this application present an abstract view of your database, and end users are unaware of any existence of the database beyond the application. And in the other end, the database tier is not aware of any other user beyond the application tier, and the application layer sites in the middle and acts as a mediator between the end user and the database. And your application tier is the middle level, as in is the middle tier. And next is your presentation tier. Presentation tier, end user operate on this tier, and they know nothing about any existence of the database beyond this layer. And at this layer, multiple view of the database can be provided by the application, and all views are generated by the application that reside in your application tier. And now I'm talking the advantage of your DBMS. If you will use the DBMS, you will improve your data sharing, and also you will improve the data security. And next is your better data integration. Means you will combine the data in your better way. In your when you are taking the database, obviously if you are taking the database, you will make so many tables, and in your table you will insert the so many records. And your record is the collection of your fields. So through the database, you can combine the data in a better way. That's why I had told better data integration, and minimize data inconsistency. That is another advantage of your DBMS, as per I had told. Improve the data access, and improve the decision making, and your increased end user productivity. These are the so many advantage if you are using the DBMS, if you are making the database of any enterprise, and your DBMS having so many disadvantage, like your increase the cost. If you are making a database of your enterprise, obviously your cost will increase, because in your database management system team there are so many people, there are so many employees are working in your database. Okay, that's why your cost of your database automatically increase, and your management complexity, and your maintaining the currency, and frequent upgrade replacement cycles. So these are the so many disadvantage of your database. And after discussed about your DBMS, I am presenting so many questions, like your a collection of related data. Maybe your information, valuable information, database, and your metadata. Obviously, I had told in your database you will store the data, and also you can say that if you will collect the related data, that is your DBMS. Related data, like if I will collect the all data of your student, like your student name, father name, mother name, state of student, area of student, city of student, and if we will collect the all data of your student, this is my database. That's why you can say that your collection of related data is called the database. And I have also explained in my PPT, database is the collection of your related data and its metadata organized in a structured format. It is designed to optimize information management. And next, other question is that database is generally maybe system centered, user centered, company centered, and your data centered. So obviously, your database is generally user centered. Your database is user centered. The perspective is that the user is always right. If there is a problem with the use of the system is the problem, not the user. Okay, so normally database is generally user centered, not a system centered, not a company centered, not a data centered. And next question is that characteristics of an entity, maybe relation, attribute, parameter, and constraint. Obviously, I had told your entity have so many characteristics, and your characteristics of your entity is called the attribute. In this question, the characteristics of an entity is called the attribute. The restrictions placed on the data, relation, attribute, parameter, and constraint. Obviously, constraint is your restriction that is placed on the data. Attribute is the characteristics, and the relation describe the association. It means constraint is the restriction. That's why restriction placed on the data, not a relation. not attribute, not parameter. Restriction placed on the data is that constraint. And the MS stand for information mastering system, instruction management system, instruction manipulating system, and information management system. Obviously, your MS stand for the stand information management system. It is developed to manage large amount of your data for complex project. That is the basic purpose of your DBMS. Why your DBMS is developed? Why is your MS management system and process management system? Basically, it is developed to manage the large amount of your data for the complex project. And other question is that object equal plus relationship. Obviously, your object equal entity plus relationship. That is your ER diagram, entity relationship. So you can say that your object equal to entity plus relationship. I had already told so many times about the entity. Entity is your person, or and you can also say that is your place. And your entity having so many characteristics, entity having so many features. Okay, and relationship between the two entity. Suppose your student and teacher both are the entity, and there is some relationship between your student and your teacher, because the teacher will teach the student. Okay, so object equal object entity plus relationship, and your relationship will define in your between the entity. Okay, so today I have discussed about database management system. I hope you have understood about your DBMS, what is DBMS, why to learn the DBMS, what are the characteristics of your DBMS, how many types of your DBMS. Okay, thank you.